Welcome, fans. We're Sports Hub NFL is back up and running again. We had to do stuff for the NFC and AFC Championship game, and talking out to the Twitter world, we got a few messages back of people willing to come on and talk about their teams. But the team, obviously, everyone wants to talk about is the Bengals. Why? Well, because 2 years ago, the Bengals were the worst team in the league. They selected a quarterback, which I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about, and quite simply, in 2 years, the franchise has completely turned around. So every team that's selecting in the top 5, top 10 this year, I think this is the blueprint. So I'd just like to welcome our very special guest, Peter. Peter, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. And what an amazing time to be talking Bengals football on the 28th of January.
Well, yes. Thanks very much, Neil, for having me. The idea of being relevant in January, let alone February possibly, is quite something for a lot of young fans who don't remember the trips to the Super Bowl that we had. It's quite something, and it's exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we touch on obviously the draft and Joe and Zach Taylor, an interesting point because with this run and what quite frankly looks like a very well put together squad moving forward, this is a real chance to re-energize a younger Bengals fan, almost like regardless of how maybe in the next 10 years it could look really positive, and that kind of raise up a whole another level of fandom, as
Absolutely.
you say, maybe has dwindled in recent times. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And obviously, we are a few thousand miles away from Cincinnati, but we follow very closely. Social media is great for that, and we see the enthusiasm, we see the energy around the place. And there were some pre-season moves within the organisation, which also helped energize the fans. And you see a lot of young fans, a lot of fans using social media to doing edits and videos, and it's absolutely wonderful. There are fans who don't remember the bad times, the 90s, and they are seeing a young, energetic side that they can relate to, and it's drawing new fans in. I was watching, or reading rather, fairly recently, and some LSU fans, because of Burrow, because of Chase, because of Thaddeus Moss, these LSU fans are saying, we're watching Bengals now, we're supporting Bengals now. So success breeds interest, and it's great that we have that at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, we obviously have to talk about your young quarterback, although arguably not that young, as he's 25
Correct.
years of age.
Yeah.
So he's kind of seasoned. And obviously for him, an interesting story. He started at Ohio State, supposedly in some respects couldn't quite make the grade. Transferred down to LSU, down in the Bayou. Just the tremendous volume of talent that comes out of LSU year in, year out. And he took that on board and very quickly took over the leadership role and led a group of men to a national title. Funny enough, just with that one, he won a national title with a head coach, Ed Ogeron, who subsequently has now left already. So it really does show his magnetism and power in that period of time. And I think he's come into the NFL, obviously knee injury last year. How amazing has kind of essentially his playing time's maybe a season and a half, but these last 2 years, he's shown everything you hope from a number one pick, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's take it back. I mean, when he went into Ohio State, he was competing with quite a few quarterbacks, and when he realized that the quarterback who is now on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster was going to be favored over him, he decided, I'm going to transfer, and he went to LSU. Now, the first season at LSU was okay, but it wasn't spectacular, and he played in a bowl game. And there was an incident in the bowl game when there was a tip pass which was intercepted, and he went across to try and make the tackle to stop the touchdown. And there was an absolute crunching blindside block. The lad gets up and plays on, and that seemed to galvanize his team, saying, well, this fella's right. And in the preseason, before the 2019 season, the offense and defense were really challenging each other, and the defense generally on top. That's what LSU were used to. They were known for their quarterbacks. Yes, they had some good wide receivers, but they were known for their defense and the running game, Leonard Fournette's of the lot. But Burrow was wanting to change that. And there's a famous story that in one of the preseason practices, Devin White, now the Bucks, was really giving it some really loud. Every time a play wasn't working, he was shouting at the offense, "This isn't working. That didn't work either." That, and he was really riling them up. And this young quarterback had only just transferred it, just shouted across at him to shut up, or he was going to come over and knock him out. And everyone looked at each other and thought, "What's going on here? This doesn't happen." But it showed the moxie of this quarterback, earned the respect, and it just went from there. 2019 was just a fantastic college football season. I still go back and watch it on YouTube. I still love the games. And as a Bengals fan, we knew we were poor, and we knew that we had a really good chance of the number 1 overall pick. And we knew that Andy Dalton his time had come, and that we were going to be bringing in new quarterbacks. So this was exciting times for us. And so I was following college football very, very closely. And it was Tank for Tua was doing the round. Tua was great, but it was this young lad at LSU that no one had really heard of called Joe Burrow. So I got to watch all his games, and he was just with that. He was fantastic. So, of course, his Ohio links really helped as well. And we drafted him. And that first season, he showed signs to people. He showed signs to defenses that he was going to be legit. Of course, the injury came, which was unfortunate, but he'd already shown us that our future was bright. But what was also important was the year that we were so poor, we got the number 1 overall pick. The organization decided, we are so poor, we need to open up the coffers in free agency, which we didn't normally do. People always talk about the Bengals as being a cheap organization, etc., etc. We are usually up in the top 10 for the amount of spend, but we don't do it in free agency. But we changed that year. So 2 years ago, we started spending big in free agency, and that was largely on the defense. They remodeled the whole defense. So DJ Reader was brought in, Von Bell was brought in, and Trey Waynes, who actually didn't play that year, and it started the turnaround. And of course, last preseason, we spent more in preseason. We in free agency. We brought in Hendrickson, we brought in Awuzie, we brought in Eli Apple. That only Jesse Bates and Sam Hubbard existed from pre-Zach Taylor days on that defense. The whole thing was changed, and we're seeing it this year. That as good as that offense is, there are times when the defense can win us the game, as they did against the Titans. As good as Burrow was, it was the defense that won us that game. Burrow has been legit, and he's shown that. And when when a new level is placed before him, when the lights are brightest, he exceeds. We expected that we would have a playoff run next year. That was what we were expecting. We were hoping to have a good season, maybe a winning season this year, and then we're going to go for the playoffs next year. So we feel generally we are a year ahead of where we expected to be, and it doesn't seem like we've plateaued. We seem to be stepping up to each level, whether that be a playoff win at the first one in 31 years, then it's the playoff win on the road against the number 1 seeds. And before that, we beat the Steelers home and away. We beat the Ravens home and away. The Chiefs came into our place. We had a fantastic game against the Chiefs, and that told us fans, we're here. We can compete with the best. And I think that showed the players what they felt, which is we can compete with the best. And so it's been showing.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I think throughout the season, maybe from the outside, we've all probably given the Bengals slight disservice. We talked a lot about an aging Big Ben.
Oh, that's the NFL media for you. Yeah, they've been ragging on the Bengals.
Yeah,
forever.
There was a lot of hype around Cleveland. The Browns this season, at the start of the season, and then maybe arguably well, I think it was a pick six in the end. It was, he busted his left shoulder, and then obviously Lamar going down and the Ravens having a couple of close games. So I think the Bengals kind of came in as exciting, everyone said, well, you know, they were kind of a little bit lucky. The Ravens were down, the Browns, who knows what happened to the Browns? That doesn't make too much sense. And the Steelers was, you know, were held back maybe by the quarterback. So I think the two games, particularly the Titans game, is probably the first time, if you like, the first time that general NFL fans, particularly in the UK, actually get a chance to watch the Bengals. And I'm sure the Bengals fans will make it a point week in, week out, but we all got a chance. And so I think, obviously Burrow, but Chase certainly pops off the screen. You know, you always know where he is. He has what I always love is an NFL receiver swagger. I don't like. Yes. Quite frankly, I don't really like receivers that don't have a swagger. I don't really think they're not going to win you a game when you need it. I think,
but there's a fine line between swagger and diva arrogance.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say Beckham Jr., but that's a good example. And AB and Des Bryant at some point, and there are so many of them. These Bengals don't. They genuinely love the game. They don't care whether they get the stats or one of their teammates, provided we win. And that's a cliche. People always say that, but that is genuinely the case. You've got T. Higgins, who's a 1,000-yard receiver, but no one's talking about him. And yet he's a 1,000-yard season receiver. Boyd is the best slot receiver in the game, just about. He only went for 800 and change.
Yeah.
But on their day, it's someone's day. It is someone's day. So if the Chiefs double on Chase because what he did to them last time, that's fine, because you've then got to stop Chase. You've then got to stop Higgins. You've got to stop Boyd. You've got to stop CJ Uzama, the tight end. You've got to stop Mixon, the running back. We've got all these weapons, and that's what's beautiful. Out of nowhere, we've crept up on people. We now have a skill group of Burrow, Mixon, Boyd, Higgins, Chase, all of them age 25 or under, all of them under minimum 3-year contract. How's that?
Not too good for the AFC North, I don't think, because I think it's always that confidence of, can we do it? And then when you start doing it, they now know what playoff football tastes like, regardless of the result this weekend and potentially in 2 weeks' time, because I certainly wouldn't write them off at this stage. They know what this tastes like. This must taste good. It must feel good. And I think the checks help as well, right? Because they all get paid. Everyone gets paid extra and all the same amount, right? So I think everyone likes that additional check. So now the rest of the other three teams in the league and the rest of the AFC now, I think, are on notice. This team can play. And we're going to have to talk about, I always love it, the elephant in the room. We're going to have to talk about the elephant in the room. Your offensive line does give up.
Yeah.
Now, just to be clear, for anyone that's new, the offensive line, 5 big guys in front, they are very important. They're very important because normally when your quarterback gets sacked 9 times, you don't win games. The Bengals do win games when he gets sacked a lot, but it's not all the offensive line. I don't want because I've got quite a number of friends who play offensive line. Don't scream at me. We know he holds the ball a little bit long, but that's what happens when you have a dynamic offense. So it's not all on the offensive line. But in the draft, the offensive line could have been it was Chase or Penny Sewell, I think, if my memory serves right. Penny Sewell.
Well,
and you didn't go
in the run-up.
Line.
I was going to say, in the run-up to the draft, it enlightened all the Bengals fans. We had 2 hashtags: Team Chase or Team Sewell, and people were arguing them. And sometimes you were flipping between one and the other. We all know how crucial the O-line is. It's crucial for the run game. It's crucial for the passing game. And Sewell was considered a generational talent. So it divided opinion. I think it's fascinating, actually, what the Bengals have done and what impact that's going to have on roster building in the NFL. Teams are going to look at this and say, "Wow, they're stacked." They've gone down the route of just giving more weapons. If you've got the quarterback who can perform off script, which Burrow can, that's what surprised a lot of neutrals. They didn't realize that he's not a stand in the pocket Tom Brady. He will get out of the pocket. He's actually thrown for over 1,000 yards this season from outside the pocket, which is quite something. Now so when you've got all those weapons, he loves going empty set. He doesn't particularly want the running back unless he's going to hand it off. He doesn't want the running back alongside him. He'd rather have 5 people out. Yes, by all means, blitz him if you want, but he loves it when it's a bit like Mahomes. The two of them, the game coming up, don't blitz.
No.
They love it when you blitz, because when you blitz, then you are creating one-on-ones or even better,
Yeah.
and they will find it. Now the problem with, you referenced 9 sacks the last game against the Titans. He was sacked 9 times. There are a number of those when he was holding on for too long. A lot of it was, well, it was 2 things. First of all, the coverage at the back end by the Titans was excellent, so he had no one to throw it to. And the other one is that they didn't just send 1 or 2 guys rushing straight at him. They were they were running stunts. They were running a great deal of. They were confusing him in essence.
Yeah.
But also, what they did is they compressed the pocket and made it smaller and smaller, so he couldn't get out of it. So he's very good at doing what the good quarterbacks are. That they sense when the pressure is and they bail out. Often they bail in one direction. He couldn't do that because the Titans just squeezed the pocket around him, and that's what caused a lot of the sacks. This O-line does need to be improved. My best guess is that we will start that in free agency. Mm-hmm. We find ourselves in the AFC Championship game with a shot at the Super Bowl and all these weapons. We also find ourselves with the 5th most cap space coming to the preseason, which is a lovely place to be. And the organization have shown in recent times in the spending on the defense that we're prepared to do it. So we hope that we will spend on the offense. And one final thing on that, if I may. Yeah. Some of our acquisitions this year, so I'll name 3. Okay, Riley Reef from previously of the Vikings, and Mike Hilton, formerly of the Steelers, Ricardo Allen, formerly of the Falcons. So Mike Hilton, when asked, why did you go from the Steelers to the Bengals? And he said one thing, they've got a quarterback. That's why he was there. Ricardo Allen was asked on the field before the game, one of the playoff games, by Drew Brees, who knew him from the NFC South days. Why did you get to Cincinnati? And he simply said, Joe Burrow. Riley Reef, why did you go there? Because he saw the future because of the quarterback. DJ Reader in free agency had a choice between the Denver Broncos and the Cincinnati Bengals. His agent told him, you're going to make a choice between Drew Lock and Joe Burrow. There was no competition. Absolutely. So the players migrate to these quarterbacks. And so with the money to spend, we expect to be very competitive with some of the best free agents, because now they're seeing a young Bengals who there's a chance they can go and get a ring in the next couple of years. They'll pay well, and they've got the quarterback. So we're hoping that this offseason we'll be able to strengthen, not just in the draft, but especially in free agency, and hopefully do what the Chiefs did. The Chiefs lost the Super Bowl because their O-line was decimated, and they went out and they traded for Orlando Brown. They spent big on Tooney. They drafted Creed Humphrey. They were being really expert way of dealing with the problem, using all formats, free agency, draft, and trade. They did brilliantly, and we need to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'll just wrap it up a little bit, because, as I say, I don't want to just, because everybody's banging on that O line and using 9 sacks. You don't have it's fundamentally it's impossible to have a shocking O line with 1,000-yard running back. The 2 things you have to. Yeah. The running back, Mixon is very good, but he's not Barry Sanders. He's not just. He don't just
no
run
one is Barry Sanders
all the time. No, absolutely. So I would just like to make sure everyone's super clear. The offensive line has many good qualities to it, and there are many more reasons than just they just happen to they just give up a lot of sacks, as you say. And the Titans, again, you were playing the number one team in the AFC, who missed their star player for I think 7 to 8 games. At the end of the year. So it was it's a very, very good Titans team, head coached by Mike Vrabel. I'd just like to, probably 2 more quick questions if you're okay. Number one, your head coach, Zach Taylor, just a couple of words, about him, because I think he very, very much, I feel like he slightly goes under the radar a little bit, I believe he comes, I think people call him from the Sean McVay tree. I personally disagree with that. I think they all come from the Mike Shanahan tree. They're all Mike Shanahan disciples. Certainly.
And do you know who Mike Shanahan is to Zach Taylor?
No, I know who he is to Kyle.
Father-in-law.
Oh, Wow, well, even more so then.
There you go.
But yeah, I personally wrap them all up into Mike Shanahan. I think there's a,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
they all fundamentally want to run the ball to pass. They do love explosive passes. They seem to, Zach Taylor, Sean McVay, obviously Kyle himself, LaFleur over in Green Bay. They've obviously very dynamic passing attacks, but actually it's the running game which is the key. It's the hammer that opens the cracks, that allows for the explosiveness. I think they're all essentially that same. But he's been outstanding, right?
He has. Look, he after we beat the Raiders, so before the Titans, it could have been after the Titans, but very recently in the playoffs, he has said, he gave credit to the owner, the president, and said, look, any other organization, I'm not here right now. Because he went 6-1-25 in the first 2 years. Why is he still there? Because the owner doesn't overreact and liked what he saw and believed in what he saw. And so it showed. He was a rookie head coach. He brought in fairly young coordinators. And so just as players take a while to bed down, it was taking him a while. He gradually removed the players that were from the old regime and brought in his players. The 2020 draft, so 2 years ago, every single player he drafted was a team captain. He has all been about the locker room and the character and the culture. And he talked about this non-stop when he first arrived, and everyone was thinking, all right, this is coach talk. Yeah, this means nothing. But we're now seeing it. Yeah. We're now seeing that locker room, the camaraderie that goes on there. One of the beat writers for The Athletic for the Bengals is Paul Dana Jr., who wrote a great article very recently. You'll be able to see it on The Athletic, which talks about just this, the character in the locker room and how it manifests itself on the field in many ways. Against the Detroit Lions back in early November, I think it was, we had a passing play out to Mixon out wide, and he was making a good chunk play. Jamar Chase sprinted at full pace, caught him up, went past him to knock out the cornerback, which allowed Mixon to get in the end zone. This was a 6 foot, 200-pound wide receiver putting himself on line to get his running back mate. It was just fantastic. It was just an illustration that this lot play for each other, and that all comes to Zach Taylor's ethos. That it's the character and the culture in the club, which is so important, and we are seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking ahead at the game, listen, we can't hide behind the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs for 4 years, Mahomes has been the starter. 4 years, the AFC Championship game has been in his building. He's been to the last 2 Super Bowls, and probably should have gone to the first one, quite frankly. They are a machine on offense and dangerous on defense. It's been a long time since you won a playoff game. How do you think you're going to feel in the run-up, in the lead-up to the game?
Okay, you're asking me, so this is a personal, and I know there are others who don't feel quite the same. But I was confident but nervous ahead of the Raiders wildcard game. And then ahead of the Titans, I had no nerves at all in the run-up to it. And it was only actually in the fourth quarter I got nerves because we were playing on house money. This was a free hit for us. And to a certain extent, I feel the same. We are that close to the Super Bowl now that perhaps there will be some nerves, but I still feel that we are somewhat playing with house money. Everyone's talking about the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win this game. The Chiefs are going to blow us out, etc., etc. Every step of the way, the NFL media have spoken against us, that we can't do it. We can't do this. Don't ever tell Joe Burrow that he can't do something. Don't ever do that. If there is one team that is ideally set up to beat the Chiefs, it's the Bengals, because our strength, the passing game, matches their relative weakness, which is their cornerback room. We can go toe to toe with them. Our defense is fairly strong. We will have a problem with Kelsey. Kelsey will get 100 odd yards. He does it every time. We have a problem with tight ends. We have a problem with running backs catching out of the backfield. But we find a way. This defense creates opportunities. It's creating turnovers. And if it can create turnovers from Mahomes and give Burrow extra opportunities, we stand a chance. What I'd love, however, is to see something that we've not been doing for a few weeks, which is get the running game going. And when we played them in week 17, 3 times we were 14 points back, 14 points behind. So we had to throw the ball, and boy, did we throw that ball. I would like to see it close. I would like to see us get ahead. And when we get ahead, let's get that running game. Let's start controlling the clock some more.
Well, I mean, I certainly don't, and I'm not just saying this, I certainly don't write them off. I probably would predict Kansas City just being at home and the experience, but I certainly don't write them off. I'm just super excited to watch the game. I think
it's going to be cracker.
For me, it's the better of the 2 games. I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah, I agree.
The 49ers are likely to they definitely want to. They're going to likely muddy that game up. I think these 2 teams
they've won 6 in a row against the Rams, aren't they? Haven't they?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is.
Sorry to interrupt. I don't want the 49ers. A lot of people do. I want the Rams to get to the Super Bowl, because if my team gets there, and we're not favourites to do that, I get that. But if we do, I don't want to face the 49ers again. A, we lost them this year already, but B, we've been in the Super Bowl twice, and on both occasions the 49ers beat us. Joe Montana and the 49ers beat us on both occasions. I don't want that. But also, one of the beloved former Bengals is Andrew Whitworth at the Rams, and there's nothing that Bengals fans would like more than him getting a ring, provided it's not at our expense.
Absolutely. Well, listen, good luck.
Thank you.
I don't know who I'm going to be. I'm a Raiders fan, so I'll definitely be cheering on the Bengals.
Oh, you didn't tell me that. Oh, if I knew that.
But we will... Listen, we will.
You punched above your weight this year. You've had a really good season with everything that you've had to deal with. Absolute kudos to the Raiders, and hopefully they're going to have quite a good AFC West next season.
Well, yeah, if the Denver Broncos leave Aaron Rodgers alone, that's all I got to say about that.
Aaron Rodgers is not going to move to the AFC thinking I'm going to get more rings, because then he's moving into a conference that's got young quarterbacks, Burrow, Mahomes, Herbert, and that running back at Ravens, Lamar Jackson. Yeah, good young quarterbacks good young quarterbacks who are going to be there forever. Rodgers isn't going to like that. He best stay in the NFC.
Yes. I don't know. All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Huge
You're
pleasure. Welcome. Maybe we'll speak in a week or so's time, and we'll be talking about
if we get there. Happy to come back on and gloat and really gloat.
100%. All right. Thank you very much. See you later.
No problem. Good day.
Sports Hub video fans. Second helping. It's like I've asked for a second helping. Bengals have come double fisted into this fight. They're absolutely up for this game, and unsurprisingly, they're all willing to talk about the chance at a Super Bowl. Don't win one playoff game in 31 years. And like buses in London to come along at once. So I'm super happy to introduce you to Jamie. We're going to talk to him. We're going to find out how he's feeling. But I've got to start with this. Jamie, welcome. But I've got to start with this. It's crazy, right? You're still watching. You're still interested in football on the 28th of January. This is so mentally unusual. And now I know the Bengals have been, let's call it good, under Andy Dalton, but this is crazy, right? You're at the end of Jan, there's a Super Bowl on the horizon, and the Bengals are in with a chance. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's properly weird. So this is probably, you mentioned the Dalton years and all that kind of Marvin Lewis teams that happened, and they were good. They were all right. They probably should have done more than they actually ended up doing.
Yeah.
But there's been nothing on kind of the scale of what this team has brought. And it kind of all boils down to, now you've got the tier 1 quarterback. Now you've got Joe Burrow. It's actually starting to look like, there's a chance you've got a sniff at a championship this year. There's going to be further opportunities in future. But yeah, we're now on the 28th of Jan. 30th of January, there is a Bengals game being played. I have no idea how it's ever got to that point, but I'm very happy.
That's amazing. So I think I always find the interesting thing for us over in the UK is we get to pick our teams. We often get to pick our team slightly differently. So everyone kind of generally has their own story in how they fell into the team they fell into. Just tell me how Bengals, why, as you say, it's a long time since they've won a playoff game. So there's no glory hunting like my Patriot fans who know who they are. Just follow the team that wins. So you kind of had to pick. What was the reasoning? Who's done this? Who's done this terrible thing to you?
All right. So my dad got me into NFL. He's a massive Green Bay Packers fan. I got Madden when I was about 10 or 11, and I was really hot at it. I was brilliant at it. And on the occasions that my dad would play against me, to kind of make it a bit fair, I played as the worst team on the game. That was the Bengals. It was sort of the very early 2000s Bengals, what sort of pre Marvin, pre Carson Palmer, when they really just had the absolute dregs playing for them, and it was it kind of all snowballed from there.
So John Madden done it again.
John Madden done it again.
Done it again. I mean, obviously, there's players that talked about Coach Madden so often how they start to get into the game, how you learn what play calls are, certain formations become much easier. That's really interesting. So yeah, obviously we're going to talk about the Bengals themselves, and listen, there's talent. People obviously talk about Burrow. There's talent throughout, but we all have to speak about the quarterback. 2 years since you drafted him, he is 25, so he's slightly older for kind of for 2 years experience, but he played in college, so it covers some of that experience. He's not just been a talent on the field, but he's been a breath of fresh air off it. He's been a breath of fresh air on it. He seems like an amazing character, not just with a great arm and a great player. How's he been just for the whole organization, not just on the field but off?
Well, yeah, it sort of changed around you've gone from Andy Dalton and at the time I described Andy Dalton as like having Ned Flanders at quarterback. He's a really nice guy. He's such a nice guy. He is not going to be kind of coming in there and sort of telling you who he is and kind of saying that we're going to be the best. Now, Burrow came in, obviously he took LSU on that massive playoff run in his final year in college, and that was all permeated by, there were a lot of kind of confidence things with that. He's pointing at his ring finger during the championship game, and that confidence has come in and it's kind of spread around the team. We've taken a few players. Obviously, Jamar Chase, he's a confident lad as well.
A little bit.
Yeah, and it's kind of spreading around the locker room now that basically everyone is on board with this attitude. Now, sort of the last few weeks, that there's been a mantra around Bengals Towers of why not us, and it's changed to it is us. And I think that is all on Burrow. There was apparently some kind of all-player meeting last week where he just got them all sat down and gave them this kind of rabble-rousing sort of speech to them, and so everyone's up at the end. Everyone's sort of shouting their ass off at the end. It is, his attitude is something quite different to what the Bengals have seen in the past. And it's probably not seen anyone sort of close to this since Boomer Esiason in the 80s. Really everyone since has either been kind of going through Cincinnati on the way to somewhere else, or have just been kind of a little bit too nice and a little bit too kind of kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's they get paid the most, they get talked about the most, and I think everybody that kind of wants to talk about the game or calling media or around the edges of media, we all would love to sit there and say, oh, let's get into, what's your middle linebacker like? But quite frankly, no one knows who anyone's middle linebacker is. Not for a long time, not probably since Ray Lewis retired. And so the quarterback is pivotal, and I think is a key signal caller to who your organization is. I think, without being arrogant, the Bengals have walked around, kind of strutted around all season. As someone who is married to a Ravens fan, I do pay attention to how you guys are getting on, because it's important to her. And actually, you've been walking with this swagger all year. I think people now are switched in because they're, one game on. This is the only game to watch, but it's not really. This has been the Bengals all season. I think I know he got injured with his knee, but it was it was middle of the season, so he was back for kind of training camp. This swagger's been there, but it's really good because I think the organization knows what to do now. It's almost easy, right? We've got the quarterback, we've got the star receiver, we've got the other star receiver, we've got the star running back. Oh, okay, now we need to put these pieces in place, and it's a much easier focus. And your defense draft or free agency almost fit the same bill. But obviously, moving on, you take Burrow one year, you take Chase the next year. I'm guessing you're going to look into the LSU in the draft this season. So all Bengal fans just watching LSU games all season?
I mean, I think the ship might have sailed on LSU now. They haven't been great the last couple of years. I'm assuming we're looking interior offensive line, because that's where the big hole is. Either through free.
We're going to Wisconsin, Nebraska.
Yeah. That Linderbaum guy, where's he from? He's from one of the I states, either Iowa or Indiana.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we're going for someone big in the middle, and we'll hopefully manage to actually get some protection up front for him. I mean, it's not the worst it could be. I think last week's debacle was largely the result of one player. I mean, some others didn't quite have the best games, but the right guard, Hakeem Adeniji, he didn't have a great day at all. So I think he's top of the list for replacement. He might well lose his job for this week, given how badly it went for him last week. I mean, Isaiah Prince wasn't great, but wasn't dreadful. Jonah Williams wasn't great, wasn't dreadful. And the rest of them looked pretty fine.
Yeah, and what I would like to say is the offensive line can't be horrific because you still had 1,000-yard running back. You don't, they may need some work in the pass protection, but like I said, it's much easier to train, to kind of improve your existing play and stuff, at draft, find players in free agency when you know what you're looking for. Yeah, we need some help in pass protection, and you'd be shocked. I always find it might become from a new coach, or an additional coach on that offensive line. It just helps with some of the technique. As I say, the run blocking is clearly right up there for a team that's so explosive in the air. To still have 1,000 yards shows the explosiveness across the board. And obviously, with Zach Taylor, your head coach, he's another he's another confident kind of talker. Again, you must be super happy with just how it's going. Again, the Bengals are not known for just throwing coaches under the bus after a year. This is a good. I'm a big believer. This is a good sign for the NFL when a coach is given a couple of years' time and then is able to show the turnaround. It's not just an instant reaction. So, how is that, Taylor, for you across the board?
No, I wanted him gone last year, and I'll kind of freely admit this. So, you have his first 2 years, he wins 6 games over 2 years. It wasn't good. He kept talking a good game. He kept sort of saying, it's going to improve at some point. It's going to get right at some point. And it took me probably to about 2/3 of the way through this season to finally get on board. My problem with him mainly was offensive play calling, which is something he does as a head coach instead of leaving it to the offensive coordinator. I feel that occasionally he'd be a little bit timid, a little bit kind of scared to actually put the ball in Burrow's hands. Now, I mean, you can explain that by him wanting to take the pressure off Burrow, given the nature of his injury last year, and kind of as they got towards the business end, it was more the case of putting it in the hands of Joe Burrow. I've still got reservations about Zach, but it's looking a lot better now, and hopefully, the lessons have been learned from previous games where maybe he was a little bit too shy about getting Joe involved.
So what does he do to gain your? What does he do apart from winning the Super Bowl? What does he do to gain your confidence, other than winning the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so it's just don't force the run. I mean, obviously, I heard the back end of Pete's interview, and he was saying about wanting to get the run going. I'm not that guy. I love the Bengals when they're out in 5 spread, and it's just Burrow picking apart holes in secondaries. I think that's our best, suit. That's how we win games, and we're not a team that should be running on 2nd and 10. I don't think there's many teams that should be running on 2nd and 10, and we're certainly not one of them. And it's kind of Zach cutting out that kind of habit. That's what's brought me more on board. Also, he's got a little more bold on 4th down. I mean, particularly the big example was playing KC 4 weeks ago, when he went for it on 4th down right at the end. But that has been something where I've had a bone of contention for a while with him, but he's brought me back on board by kind of recognising the position that the Bengals are in and making the big decisions in a kind of bold way, as opposed to in a way that is coaching to save Burrow's injury or coaching to save his own job.
Yeah, well, and then obviously that takes us nicely onto the game on Sunday. I think I'm going to predict it now. We have the game of the day in the Bengals, the Chiefs, the Bengals at the Chiefs. I think that's going to be the game of the day, which is good, because if the other game becomes boring, then I can fall asleep with no guilt on my conscience, because I think I would have watched the better of the games. I could wax lyrical about Kansas City as hating them, or hate's probably too strong, or disliking them so much you kind of spend a lot of time kind of trying to pick holes in them. They do have holes, as every team does. Do you think the Bengals pluses fit nice enough into the Chiefs negatives, or are you a fan who's kind of maybe a little bit wary, or are you like, who cares? We're in the championship game. Let's move forward.
Well, I think it's kind of a bit on both sides. So obviously, I mean, the Bengals have this great passing attack. You've got your Burrow, you've got Jamar Chase. If Jamar Chase is double covered, you've got T. Higgins, you've got Tyler Boyd. I mean, CJ Uzomah's been getting involved quite a lot. So, I think that the Chiefs are going to have real difficulty stopping that element of our offense. Now, the way they can do it is getting Chris Jones involved. Now, Chris Jones had a absolute field day against our O-line 4 weeks ago, and I don't see it being any different. I really like him.
Yeah.
He's a great player,
yeah.
And I think he could cause us a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I can see it going the same way that the Bills-Chiefs game last week went, in the quarterback's takeover. It's a case of, I mean, Josh Allen was just throwing dimes last week, and I can kind of see it happening that it ends up that way with Burrow versus Mahomes, and it is just getting Jamar in space or getting T. Higgins in space and challenging their secondary to keep up, because I'm not sure that they can.
Yeah, and the only positive, but both teams have it, is because they both have electric players and dynamic players. You should hope that on the defensive side, whilst you can't keep up with it, you at least should start working out how to play the right angle to deal with real speed. That said, looking at Hill last week, that's just another level of speed. I don't know if that's 99 on Madden or 120 on Madden, but he put his foot down and went into a different zone. But Chase can do the same thing. So I'm super looking forward to, just if not anything, but the egos across the opposite sides of the field. So again, for anyone that doesn't really watch the NFL, we all talk about matchups like quarterback versus quarterback or receiver versus receiver when they never see each other on the field. We do so because the best thing, or I would say the best thing about the NFL is when you are one side of the ball, when you are on the defense, you actually get to watch your opposite number. You actually get to say, oh, hold on a second, how many tackles has he got? And in this instance, Chase will be going, oh, how many yards has he got? I said, okay. I've got something to reply to you. And so you kind of have this weird cat and mouse thing of going back and forth. And if you ever watch on NFL.com or sometimes on our site as well, you'll often see players mic'd up just talking about essentially what would essentially be their opposite number. And I think this game is this classic. It's a classic. It's almost like a wrestling match. I don't know if Vince McMahon would have wanted anything different. It was a great game last week. This game is almost like a carbon copy. They're just going to run it back. I would imagine the audience number is going to be massive again, because I think the talk will be, and luckily I don't think the talk is all Kansas City. I think it's going to be a great game. If you could pick one player not named Burrow, any of your receivers, not Burrow, and you can pick an offensive lineman if you want, who for you will be the key of the game that we should look out for, but they probably won't ever talk about because it won't be one of the kind of the big names. Who are you looking to kind of make a play, do something special, and take you guys to the Super Bowl?
I think Mike Hilton is good for one giant play every week. So last week he had the interception of Tannehill in the red zone, and that was all done on his own. That was sort of get up for the tip it up, catch it yourself, and run it. He couldn't run very far. He'd been on two drives in kind of pretty quick succession, so his legs had gone. But he made the play, and that was enough. I think Mike Hilton is always good for at least one massive play, whether it's a sack, whether it's a sort of sack fumble. He's had a couple of pick sixes this year. It's always good to have on your record. I think that he's the guy to look out for.
Say him again. Say his name again.
Mike Hilton.
Mike Hilton. So I think we're all going to have to look out for Mike Hilton, see what and if he does something. I remember the pick from last week. I would just say Tannehill's always good to throw. I reckon if I played DB, I'd have got to pick off Tannehill. He gives everyone something. This is going to be a great game. I think the Bengals, both sides of the ball, have a real chance. If it comes down to your kicker, you got confidence in your kicker?
I mean, he's got confidence in himself. He was coming on to kick the field goal last week and turned to the bench and just said, "It looks like we're going to the AFC Championship, boys." And I love that. I love that from him. We drafted him in the 5th round. If you're using a draft pick on a kicker, he has to be good. He is good. I love him being here, and I've loved the idea of bringing him in since it happened. I have every confidence, and the thing is, he's got a massive leg on him as well. And this hasn't really been tested so far in his career. I think he's gone out to 57, but he's got a bit more in his tank than that. And, if it comes down to it, if it's all tied up and you've got seconds remaining, I trust him probably from 60 inwards to make that, and maybe even out as far as 65. I've got implicit trust in that guy, and I think he knows that he's good as well.
Yeah, I always love it. A kicker, I think you have to have ultimate confidence as a kicker. You have such a unique job. There are probably only a few sporting jobs. I remember the old days in field hockey. They used to be specialist penalty or penalty shot takers and stuff, things like that. It's such a specialized job, and when you got a good one, it's fantastic. But you again, like anything else, it's the confidence of the player, the confidence the player exudes from themselves and the other players around them show. I think the Bengals have got a chance. It's a tough game against Kansas City, but Kansas City have shown all season that they are beatable. Just finally, you're going to go into the game. what's the process for you going into this game? Are you thinking about are you going to be able to eat? You're going to be pacing? Should we get insurance out on the TV? Do you have a backup television? What's going on?
All right, so I'm going to a bar to watch it. So half of it's going to be traveling there, getting there, meeting people, all that. Hopefully that keeps me calm. I mean, last week I was a bit of a mess. I've been out to football last week because it was a Saturday, but on a Sunday it's different. You got the whole day to kind of stew over it. We'll see. I guess I'm going to enjoy the day because I've never gone through this before, and sort of any Bengals fan that isn't super old hasn't gone through this before, and yeah, I'll enjoy it, and the game's going to be stressful. It always is, but you may never get to see one of these again for decades. Aaron Rodgers only got to one NFC Championship in his career, as it stands, and as much as Joe Burrow looks to be that talent and that level of player, it may well work out that this never happens again. So you just enjoy it, and you see where you end up.
Wow, I'll make a prediction. Joe Burrow will be in this position again. There will be a minimum of one more time when you're in an AFC Championship game. He's a special player. I guess like every team, you've got to hope you kind of get it in his rookie contract because you can follow the rest of the roster. But he does look like he can take players along with him. And as everybody's alluded to, free agents are willing to come now. Because they know they know they're in with a chance. If everyone holds up their end of the bargain, he will take them to the promised land. He's shown that in LSU, and brilliantly, he's shown it now. I don't think a Super Bowl has to be the definition of greatness anymore. Well, particularly as Brady kind of dealt with that question about championships. I think we can just talk about success now. So I think it's going to be a fun ride. I think the game's going to be amazing. I think it's going to be a great. I think the AFC North is going to be amazing moving forward. We just got to see, and there's so much talent in the AFC North. So I do think the Bengals can come out. I know everyone's going to fire shots at that, but they have the makings, at least over the next 3 years, 2 to 3 years, of a really good side. Massive thank you for coming on. Super wish you all the luck in the world for the game on Sunday. And what we're going to have to do is, I think the neutrals, I hope, will be kind of all looking for a Bengals victory, because it's a slightly more fun story. And I think the Bengals in a Super Bowl, I think if you're any sort of content creator, that's the story to tell. So we're going to have to see. But good luck. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you very well.
It's been an absolute pleasure, man.
All right, cheers, dude. Oh, thank you very much for that.
All right.
Yeah, I really do wish you well. I'm actually looking. I very much, like I said before, I'm massively looking forward to the game. This is the game for me. This is the one to be watching and paying attention to. So, and it's on at a good time because my kids go to bed.
That's it. This is the whole thing about getting people together. It's sort of in a bar to watch it, because if it's the 11 o'clock kickoff, that's never going to happen. So I'm happy that we're doing it early. Yeah, it's going to be great time. I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I wish you well. Hopefully, we're on Twitter Sunday night. Yeah. A few drinks in us and talking about a victory. I definitely think you've got a real hell of a chance. I'll be so shocked if there's a blowout.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind a blowout our way, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
I think the problem is if you go 21-0 up in like half the second quarter, I think everyone's just going to go, yeah, but they'll come back anyway. I think we'll all.
Yeah, that's just going to give me something to aim at.
Yeah.
So it'll be one of those. It'll come right down to the wire.
I think so.
It'll be like last Sunday. I mean, hopefully not as stressful as last Sunday, because I don't think it could have taken that, but we'll see.
Well, you done well, obviously, with the Raiders. You hit the, that was down to the last play. That was the last play of the game.
Yeah.
I think we've been lucky the whole playoffs long. We've kind of, most of the games have gone down to the wire. Like literally, it's like, can't go toilet. Like the moment it goes to a break, like sprinting to get to the loo to get back down, because who the hell knows. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's from my perspective, that's a fun thing, and then it just means a slightly sore head on Monday morning, but that's all good.
I've got it booked off because I've had it booked off ever since I knew that they were going to the AFC Champ, because I just know that if things end up our way on Sunday night, I am not going to bed. I am not going to get even close to going to bed. I am staying up. There's various bottles of things over here that I've got my name on, and I'm going to work through them as much as I can.
Excellent. All right, man. Thank you so much for your time.